Hi guys, we're going to do our lesson 5, which is operations with radicals. Sorry, that came out a little bit dark. I think you can handle this by video, pretty easy. Shouldn't take long at all. And then for homework or practice, I'm going to give you about 9 problems to try on your own and submit them. Okay, so operations with radicals. The other day we talked a little bit about multiplication, and today we will incorporate that one more time later on in the lesson. But first we're going to talk about addition and subtraction of our radicals. Okay, adding and subtracting radicals, you're going to need to combine like radicals. Now, of course, you remember when I always say combine like terms, yes? Okay, when we used to clean up the problem. So if you think back to when we did multi-step equations, if you had to clean up 4x plus 8y minus 3x plus 6y, you knew that you were allowed to add any terms that had the same variable. So you would add those together and get x, and then you added your y's together and got 14y. So simplified would be 1x plus 14y, okay? It's going to be the same idea here with our radicals. If your radical is the same, like a radical 3 plus a 4 radical 3, you can just combine your numbers in the front, okay? All right, so take a look. We're going to start off pretty easy here. If it says to simplify 4 radical 7 plus 5 radical 7, you're simply going to add your 4 and your 5 and get 9, and this will still stay radical 7, just as if it was 4x plus 5x would make a 9x. Same idea, okay? So 9 radical 7. Okay, take a look at the next one. We have 3 terms. We have 3 radical 6 minus 2 radical 13 plus 5 radical 6. So when you scan those, which are considered like terms? Yeah, the ones with the radical 6, and this one also has a radical 6. So I can add that together. So I'm going to add my front numbers, 3 and 5, and get 8 radical 6. Now the 2 radical 13 doesn't have anything else to match up with, so we'll just bring that down, minus 2 radical 13, and done. Okay, next one, I need you to just fix for me if you printed out this sheet. I have one quick typo. You're going to make this 11 is actually also a 17 there. Okay, so that should be a 7. Sorry about that. Okay, so let's take a look. This is what it should be, and I don't have a typo. 3 radical 17 minus 3 radical 17 plus 5 radical 13. Look for like terms. 3 radical 17 and negative 3 radical 17. So obviously I have a positive and a negative, so those will cancel off and add up to 0. So the only thing left is 5 radical 3, and done. Okay, those are your simple ones, because again, as soon as we started, I saw that I had radicals that were matching, and notice all of them in the end were simplified. I didn't have to do any kind of simplifying a radical for my final step. That's going to change. Here we go. It says sometimes you can express a radical in simplest form before adding or subtracting. Like, for instance, question number 4. You'll notice right away if I say add radical 27 and a negative radical 3, they're not like terms. 27 and the 3 are not like radicals. But what would happen if I were to simplify the 27? So this goes back to your first 2 lessons. What perfect square number is a factor rather of 27? 9 times 3. So radical 9 times radical 3. This is going to break free. So I'm going to write that as 3 radical 3. So I'm just rewriting the 27, square root of 27, as 3 radical 3. It's the same value, just simplified. Okay, bring down the minus, and bring down this other radical 3, and you know that there's really a 1 in the front. Feel free to write that. Okay, lo and behold, now, what do you know? They do have matching radicals. So because these are like radicals, I can go ahead and combine the 3 in the front and a negative 1 would make my final answer of 2 radical 3. Okay, let's try another one. This time we have 4 terms. 7 radical 3 minus 4 radical 6, 2 radical 48 minus 6 radical 54. Okay, none of the radicals match. Let's take a look at what we've got here. Let's start off with the 3. Radical 3, can that be simplified? No. How about a radical 6? Can that be broken down? No. How about a 48? Pretty high number. I bet we can split it. 48, biggest factor that goes into it from our list. Think 4, 9, 16, 25. I'll stop there. What was the biggest number I just said that goes into 48 out of 4, 9, 16, or 25? 16. So we're going to break that into 16 times 3. Yes, you could have used 4 times 12. It would have taken you just a couple extra steps. Okay, 16 breaks free, becomes a 4, 4 radical 3, and don't forget about that 2, bring that 2 down. So we have 2 times 4, 8 radical 3. Okay, let's talk about the 54 over here. 54, pretty high number again. I'm thinking of a perfect square factor that goes into 54. I'm thinking 9, so I'm doing 9 times 6, perfect square, breaks free, becomes a 3. And radical 6, bring this right on down and do the multiplier. So 18 radical 6, and remember that was a minus up there, so put down a minus sign. Okay, let's bring down all the rest of them from above. Minus 4 radical 6, and then that was a plus sign. Okay, now let's take a look. Let's move all this up here. All right, so what do we have? Like terms. I've got 7 radical 3. Oops, I meant to highlight that. Sorry. Erase that. All right, put the radical on. Highlight. 7 radical 3 and 8 radical 3. 7 plus 8, 15 radical 3. And then I have negative 4 radical 6. Negative 18 radical 6. Negative 4 and negative 18. Negative 22 radical 6. And done. Okay, let's do one more of these. This one's not too bad. It's two terms. Obviously, they do not match. So let's see if we can make them match after we break down the radical. 75. What perfect square number goes into 75? 25. Good. So we have radical 25 times 3. This breaks free, becomes a 5, and then bring down that negative 4, multiply it, negative 20 radical 3. Okay, let that sit there for a second. Let's work over here. 147, a little bit different number to work with. Perfect square number would be 49. 49 times 3. Again, if you can't think of that right out on the top of your head, calculator, you can use it. So we have 7, right? This becomes a 7. 7 radical 3. Bring that right on down. And then I'll have 21 radical 3. That was a plus there. And lo and behold, look at this. We've got like radicals. So when I go ahead and finalize my answer, I am adding negative 20 and a positive 21, which will give me 1 radical 3. And you'll probably just see it written like that. You don't typically print the 1 in the front. You can if you want to. I won't mark you wrong. But radical 3 would be your answer there. All right. Last thing we're going to do is multiplication. So you may remember way back when we did factoring and FOIL and multiplication. So I'm just going to write a quick little recall here. Recall, FOIL, F-O-I-L. Remember doing first, outside, inside, last. First, outside, inside, last. Okay, so we're going to do that here. And you may, pick up on a pattern here and there. But if you are given a binomial, remember that's 2 terms, times another binomial, which is 2 terms, okay? We'll end up with 4 terms, and then we'll clean it up, okay? So remember, FOIL is first times first. First term times first term. So 6 times 6 is 36. Okay, now we'll do O for outside. So 6 times radical 11. The 6 is not a radical, just 6. And then radical 11, and it's a negative, by the way. Okay, so it's going to be negative 6 radical 11. All right, now let's do I for inside. So radical 11 times 6 are my 2 inside terms. That's going to be positive 6 radical 11. And finally, we do L for last. So that's last term times last term. Radical 11 times negative radical 11. So let's first do the sign. We have a positive times a negative. So we're going to do negative. Okay, now remember from last class. What's a radical 11 times another radical 11? Shortcut. It's just going to be 11. Because remember, it's really 121. And the square root of 121 is 11. So that's just 11. Square root flies away. All right, let's clean this mess up. Here we go. We've got 36 and negative 11. So 36 minus 11 would be what? 25. And then we have negative 6 radical 11. Positive 6 radical 11. What happens? Yeah, adds up to 0. So after all that, we end up with 25. 25. All right, let's try 2 more. This one's written a little bit differently. 3 plus radical 5 squared. Guys, I'm going to show you the most popular mistake, okay? I've seen this happen over and over for years. Most students will do this. Oh, okay, that's easy. I'm going to square both items, okay? Don't write this down. This is not the right way to do it. I'm going to show you the popular mistake. You might think this is correct. 2. Attach it to the 3. Okay, that's 3 squared. Easy. 9. And then 5 squared. Radical 5 times radical 5 is just 5. And okay, that's easy. 14. All done. Go on to the next one. But guess what? We missed something. That's not the right way to do it. We're going to erase. I want you, when you see that happen, can you first just write it out? Okay, 3 plus radical 5 squared means 3 plus radical 5, and again, 3 plus radical 5. Now, I think it's a better visual. You can see that it's FOIL. So we're going to do first times first. 3 times 3, 9. O for outside. 3 times radical 5. 3 radical 5. Inside, 3 times radical 5 is again 3 radical 5. And finally, last, radical 5 times another radical 5. Trick. Radical 5 times another radical 5 is just going to be plain old 5. All right, so let's clean this up. Here we go. We have 9 and 5, 14, which was our answer, we thought, the first time when I showed you the error. And then we're going to clean up 3 radical 5 plus 3 radical 5, which is 6 radical 5. That is a way different answer than I got earlier, and that's the right way to do it. All right, last one, promise. Here we go. 2 radical 3 minus 5 radical 7 squared. All right, remember what to do? Take a minute, just write it down twice. Here we go. 2 radical 3 minus 5 radical 7. And again, 2 radical 3 minus 5 radical 7. Okay, FOIL, right? First outside, inside, last. Okay, let's get a little bit darker pen here. All right, here we go. Sorry about this grayish background when I scanned it in. All right, here we go. First times first. Now, this is a recall from last class. Remember, you're going to multiply outside number times outside number. So 2 times 2 is 4. Okay, let's make that a little bit brighter here. 4. And then we have radical 3 times radical 3, or radical times radical. And look, it's the same number. Radical 3 times another radical 3 would just be plain 3. So put that right next to the 4 like that. Okay, so F first is done. Outside, 2 radical 3 times 5 radical 7. Start with your numbers. 2 times negative 5 would be negative 10. And now do the radicals. Radical 3 times radical 7. Radical 21. All right, 2 more to go. I for inside. Inside. All right, outside 2 times negative 5. Negative 10. And your radical. Radical 7 times radical 3. Radical 21. And finally, L for last. Okay, let's get a different color here. So we're doing last times last. Okay, let's start with negative 5 on the outside times negative 5. Positive 25. Radical 7 times another radical 7 is just plain old 7. Okay, so let's do a little cleanup here. We have 4 times 3, so 12, minus 10 radical 21, minus 10 radical 21. So that would be minus 20 radical 21. And then if you had 7 quarters in your pocket, that would be plus $1.75 or $1.75. And finally, you're going to add your integers. So 12 and 175 is 187 minus 20 radical 21. The 21, by the way, in the radical, that cannot be broken down at all, so we know that we were done. Okay? If you guys get something like this on your homework sheet, which you will, okay? Let's say I gave you 3 radical 8 plus 5 radical 2 minus 4 radical 8. Okay? Do you have like radicals? Yeah. You got this one and this one. I would add them up, right? What's 3 and negative 4? Negative 1 radical 8. And then 5 radical 2 didn't have a match. Okay. One thing though, and I wrote this on your paper. This is not simplified. So technically, I don't like that as a final answer because you guys know how to simplify radicals. You're going to break that down, right? That would be 4 times 2. This breaks free and becomes a 2 radical 2. Bring down your negative. And then, oh, look, bring this down. Wow, you really were not done. I can add it now. I can do negative 2 radical 2 plus 5 radical 2. 3 radical 2 would be my final answer. So do not put a box around your final answer unless you know that this radical is completely simplified. Okay? Watch for that. All right, so give it a try with your 9 problems. If you need help, let me know, and I will see you at office hours. Have a good day.